how's everybody doing tonight? Everybody get the pen in? Yay, nay? Okay, let's go and get started. Got week 10 this week and 2 weeks. 2 weeks from this Thursday, in fact. That Thursday session is devoted to finishing up or starting, maybe for some of you, your research paper presentation, which is coming up in 4 weeks from tonight. If you look at weeks 14 and 15, it tells you who goes when. I believe it's A through N on week 14 and everybody else on week 15 for both Tuesday and Thursday. You will not be here the week of finals. Your final is your presentation and your research paper. So again, 2 weeks from this Thursday, you will have that night off to work on your research paper presentation. I think I went over a little tutorial a little bit back on helping you with an outline. Hopefully you've got started with that and started researching your topic. You also have review questions this week, quiz as always, and then lab on Thursday. Tonight we're going to go over group policy editor and event viewer in just a second. Yeah. The pen? Yeah. Tonight we're going to go over group policy editor and event viewer in the chapter, those two. You might have heard of event viewer and group policy editor both. We'll look at two commands in just a second of how to access those within Windows from any PC in your network. gpedit.msc is probably a command most of you don't use a lot or you've never used maybe. That's how you launch the group policy editor within a Windows environment, both on a Windows client and Windows server both. The difference between client and server architecture for group policy editor is this. On a client group policy editor, it only affects that one client, and that's it, that you're applying it to, okay? For a group policy editor on a network, and it's generally tied to login, it's going to affect multiple users or multiple groups within your Active Directory. There is what's called a group policy editor Bible you can buy through Microsoft. It's about that thick. Gives you everything you need to know about group policy and things you don't want to know. And it's a reference, and you'll definitely need it. Or you can find it online. There is an online version of it as well, what I use a lot. But just a word of warning, I've mentioned this already, and we'll kind of play around with it on the overhead a little bit in just a second. When you're playing around with Group Policy Editor, make sure and keep that screen open when you're experimenting with the different settings because you can lock yourself out of the PC, which I've done many times when I was learning Group Policy Editor. And so make sure you do that. I'll show you on my machine. We have it pretty much locked down on your machine, so there's no sense in even trying it on yours. But we'll try it on my machine. I'll show you the way it should look like on most clients, and if you do this at home. The event viewer, we'll go over notes in just a second on that. But the three main components on event viewer that you'll want to look at periodically for your logs on your PCs are the security event viewer, system, and then MS Office alerts. For sure, security and system, those two. And we'll look at those in just a minute as well as far as what they look like on the event viewer itself. These can be actually reported and sent to you periodically as well. So throughout your organization, there's going to be times where you have to do audits, and nobody likes to do audits, but that's basically determining who needs what rights and maybe who has more rights than they need in an organization and a group within your network. And then we looked at a whole bunch of different monitoring tools already. We're really not going to go over many of those this week because you've already looked at most of them that monitor ports and IP addresses and MAC addresses as they come through. But basically, a privilege audit is just that. You're auditing your organization to determine the least privilege for that user or that group. And what that means is, and I really don't agree with this totally, least privilege. What that means basically is you give them bare bones what they need to function. Problem with that from an IT perspective is what you think. Bare bones, just what they need to function. You've got an organization of 150 people, you've only got a two-man shop in IT, which is a normal, by the way, number. So what do you think's wrong with that logic of least amount of privileges, bare bones is what I call it, bare bones privileges per user?
Some users are going to not have enough privileges and administrative.
Exactly. There's always exceptions, right? There's always exceptions in the network, in your file structure. And so you don't make it so tight that users, or you're having to constantly go and change permissions all the time. Does that make sense? Now, one of the great things about Active Directory, which we do host here on campus, a course on Active Directory, is if you do it through Active Directory, you can basically change it, those permissions, and it applies it to a whole group. But still, even on Active Directory, on server permissions, pushing it that way, I've seen admins really tighten it up there to where they're constantly changing permissions all the time. And people get frustrated, and you get frustrated, the techs get frustrated with having to constantly mess with it. And so you want to give people the rights that they need. And I look at it like you definitely don't want them to have admin rights but to the network, but there's nothing wrong with them having admin rights to their local client. Yes?
Yeah, I was just going to say at Rock's Memorial, we're technically part of IMS.
Yeah.
And we don't have admin rights, and it just takes us off and takes off the tech support.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, there's certain things that cause triggers that happen when you don't have the rights that you need. And so it can really, really cause a lot of hiccups in the network and just daily, day in and day out productivity. So I always tell students on this part of the chapter reading, I don't really agree with the least privilege auditing. I'm more like to give people more than what they need as far as on a group by group basis. And then you can always limit them on the network what they can do and can't do, but you don't want it so tight that they can't function. But usage audits are definitely useful within an organization. Generally what's good about usage audits or privilege audits is the fact that once you do it the first time, unless you have some big change in your network and things that you do, it's not going to really change much over time. But maybe like once a year have an audit to go around and say, okay, what groups have what rights to what folders, what applications. And so the management of this, generally you're going to have somebody in the IT department managing these privileges, otherwise they never get updated. And I've seen this happen too. So you can go to two extremes. You can be too tight on stuff and too micromanaging on security for privileges, and you can be too loose to where everybody has admin rights to everything and somebody deletes a whole folder that's a productivity folder that basically causes a business to stand still for 2 days. I've seen that happen before too. So you don't want to, you can go to extremes. So basically on privilege management is the process of assigning and revoking privileges to objects. Those objects are found in the GPO in Active Directory. And Active Directory, again, can be found on the client. It could also be found on the server as well. And from all Windows OSs, server and client both have been around for probably 6-7 years as far as in full force. And so generally the one I recommend is the centralized structure of assigning privileges through Active Directory. All custodians are part of what they call it units in the book, but it's a group. You create a group for, say, sales, marketing, HR, whatever groups you have in your organization, and then each group is then given privileges. And privileges from the GPO can be very granular. And basically what that means is you can give them access to only certain applications, like a whitelist, access to only certain websites to go to, blocking them from going to Microsoft's Updates website, blocking them from Control Panel, blocking them from Internet Explorer settings, blocking them from installing software, blocking them from using USB drives, a whole bunch of stuff, CD-ROM drives, you can block from the GPO. That's already built in Microsoft, and it's been there for years. Not many organizations, I think, utilize it as much as they should, because it's right there. You don't have to buy a third-party software to do this. It's already there. It's built in. And so, and it's pretty powerful. The other way to assign privileges is Mac, these models. One's a Mac model using MAC address filtering, and then they have also discretionary, role-based, and rule-based. Generally, the ones I recommend is the role-based. Every organization has certain departments have certain roles that they serve in that organization, and those roles are generally converted from departmental names, like HR has certain roles, so they're going to have certain rights over definitely financial information, financial data, financial programs, and they're going to have full rights to that information. IT is going to have certain rights to certain information. We're not going to have rights to HR stuff. We shouldn't have anyway, to HR information. And so now, managers can have rights to their budgets for their departments. End users can have rights to their network file, their private network file, to their group network files and folders, but that's about it. And so you can lock it down through role-based fairly easy within the Group Policy Editor. When you're auditing for user privileges, a regular review, the book says, I say about once a year, go through and see if everything's working fine. Meet with your managers. Hey, do you guys have rights that you need? Do you need more rights? Do you need, I see that you've not accessed these folders in 6 months, or we're not using these anymore. And you can find this out pretty easy with an easy scan of your network to see who's accessed what through log files. And so then you can determine if maybe directories need to be moved as well. I've seen this happen to where some directories in a whole nother divisional departmental structure on a server, and it's been that way for years, and it's been needed in another department. And so Department A's needed part of Department B's security to get into their files. So it's an easy of moving files and folders around sometimes. So it's not just maybe privileges of rights, but a lot of times moving structures of files. Most organizations, it says, have a written policy that mandates regular reviews. That's a lie. They don't. Okay. Maybe some do. But most that's constantly changing and morphing and growing. And so, but you do need to have some plan in place to have regular reviews of your rights on your system. Now, this is a real easy template that could be used and duplicated for an organization. And I've used something like this before, basically on reviewing user rights and accessing them. User access rights will be reviewed on a regular basis by IT security manager. External audits of access rights will be carried out at least once a year. Now let me stop there for a second. The word external audits means somebody's coming from outside, like we talked about last week, to do this. This does cost money to do this, more money than you doing it yourself. And a lot of organizations can't afford that. And so I would say majority of businesses do not do the external audits because of cost. But you can do your own audit. You can definitely audit your own network and to see who's accessing files and folders. You can look at your event viewer, like we'll look at in a second, to see what failures are happening to determine best practices for your network. Second bullet, organization will institute a review of all network access rights every 6 months in order to positively confirm all current users. Any lapsed accounts that are identified will be disabled immediately, deleted within 3 business days unless they are positively reconfirmed. That's generally not practiced too much, but you might work in a place where an employee leaves. There should be some system in place triggered from HR downstream to IT and maintenance, so on and so forth, that begins to delete accounts, begins to delete door access. Some things should be immediate, like proximity cards, I'm guessing, to security perimeters email accounts. And these, by the way, can all be set up automatically for the most part. You can actually, within Active Directory, when you set up a user, you can give them grace periods of like 3 days to 5 days when they get hired. Also on the reverse, when they retire or quit, or they move to another location, you can give them a grace period as well within Active Directory to still log in for 3 or 5 days, and then it's disabled. The one thing I don't recommend is deleting accounts. It says in here deleting accounts. I've seen a lot of issues with that legally. I don't think that's a good practice anymore. In fact, I know it's not. Deleting network accounts or network logs, email accounts, email logs, email files. You can get a lot of trouble legally now by doing that. Most businesses are legally keeping 7 years of data of everybody, 7 years at least. Whether you say a user got hired 7 years ago and they got fired 2 weeks after that, we still have their files. We still have their information. Because it might be used in a court might be called in a court for that user's files to be brought in. And so backups, things of that nature, a lot of times from educate. I know here on campus it's the 7 year that we do, and hospitals probably the same, or maybe even more as far as employees go. But in the state of Illinois, they've recommended in all the IT meetings I've been to for IT managers, a 7 year. So you can basically disable an account without deleting it within Active Directory. That's what I recommend doing. And then you're fine there. And the organization will institute a review of access to the application once a year. This will be done in cooperation with the application owner. Will be designed to positively reconfirm to all users. Any lapsed account identified will be disabled immediately, deleted within 3 business days. What I've done on this one is you can email all your managers. It's not enough sometimes to email HR. Sometimes it takes a while for them to get back on some things. It's actually faster to know immediate results to email the individual managers on, hey, are these employees still in your department? Because I found this out a lot of times. HR will say they're hired, but they've maybe been moved to another department twice within a year. So they started out in Department A, they're now in Department C a year later. And this is the first year finding out about it. And that can cause issues with security, that can cause issues with a lot of things. And so departmental managers are a good resource to email. You can definitely should email HR, but you'll probably get a more truer feedback from departmental managers. And then it gives some bullet points here on 1 through 5 on the IT security manager will generate a list of users by application. And term application there would be just as it is spelled out there. Because of rights and policies and licensing, a lot of the applications, in fact, most of the applications you use in an organization will have to have a certain amount of licenses. And when they ask for licenses, you only have a short period of time to reply with the users that actually use that application. And so if you don't reply within that certain period of time, you'll get fined from software companies like Microsoft if they were coming to an audit. The appropriate list will be sent to each application owner. He'll be asked to confirm, hey, do you still access this application? If they don't reply within 3 to 5 days, you can then assume they don't. And you can disable that application, and it frees up that license for a user maybe that is using that application. Does that make sense? And so Office, for the most part, most organizations have site licenses for that, but there are licenses like SQL, which are very expensive, SQL Enterprise licenses. They can cost anywhere from $800 to $1,600 per license. And so you don't want to be having 5 licenses out there that are not used. Same with Visual Studio or any type of graphical application, like Quark Express is one, Illustrator is one that has a per seat license. And the network can control those as far as the license amount that's being out there and stop it when it reaches that limit. But it's good to know if a user is not using it anymore, or if a user is using it, you might, if 3 users aren't using that license anymore and you got 3 new users coming in, you don't have to buy 3 new licenses. Does that make sense? And so it does save the organization some money. They could be used for other things like switches, hard drives, servers, things of that nature, computers. The IT security manager will ensure all response within 10 business days. Any user not confirmed will have their system disabled immediately, or the application access disabled immediately within 3 business days. The IT security manager will maintain a permanent record of the lists that were distributed to the owners, owner responses, and record of any action. So these can be owners, in this case, could be managers that say, yes, these 5 use it, these 5 don't. Because a lot of times people will say they use something and they really don't. They just say yes to everything on an email. Okay? And so hopefully the managers, not always the case, but hopefully the managers are a little bit more thorough. Now on accessing security systems, basically this one just goes on to reviews the logs. Rights for logging in a network can be performed, reviewing that. Also reviewing user permissions over objects on the network, like folders, servers, things of that nature. Okay, let me go ahead and switch gears and go to the computer and I'm going to look at Event Viewer, and then we'll look at GPO Editor. Okay, so let's look at the Event Viewer first. To find Event Viewer in Windows, you just right-click on Computer or My Computer if you have XP. If you have Vista or 7, it's just Computer. Go to Manage. And then you'll see here on the left side all the different event viewers available to you from application level. You'll notice in here you can sort it by type of error or warning, and also by date. And let's see if we can find one here, like informational one, like for MS Express here. It says here on this one here that they no user information is required on this one. This one actually is a just a warning that the active CPU was not configured right for that MS Express, Server Express data, or that's just informational. That was configured fine. It was just running, and every day it runs and it starts up and gives this informational data. Here's one on warning. This one is a log for virtualization for the client I use here on the Mac for VMware. It'll generally give you an ID for the warning and a link to a help file to help you. This one is a crypt32. Says to needs an update for the third-party root, and it gives a URL for that information. You can actually copy this as well into the clipboard and paste it. The one I look at the most though is these two here, are the System and Microsoft Office Alerts. So let's look at System first. System, here's the DHCP 326/2012. Says here, computer lost an IP address on a network card with this MAC address at that date and time. And it could be a failed switch, a failed connection. A lot of issues could happen. In fact, if you're seeing this a lot on a client or clients within the same room or floor, a lot of times it could be a faulty switch. A lot of times that's the case. They do have some warnings here on printing. It tried to update a printer driver here, it looks like, having issues with that. DHCP, most of them are going to be duplicates here. Here's informational on installation. Following updates were downloaded and ready for installation on March 20, 2012 at 3 a.m. And it gives the security update and the actual file reference to look at. And then we'll go to Microsoft Alerts. This was an actual Excel spreadsheet I was in that was protected and read-only, and it noted that I tried to attempt to modify it. Okay? That can be viewed as well on Event Viewer. It was an Excel class, and I brought in a Excel application that I protected the worksheet, and it gives a log. So Windows will give a log basically of everything. And most students don't know that. You guys, can check your logs at home. It'll basically give a log of everything. Log in, log out, security updates, errors, and any Microsoft application that gives an error or a warning or information like this, it'll create a log for it, and it'll tell you detailed information about that alert. Now I'm logged in through a virtual client. If I wasn't, it would actually give the user that attempted it and what time they attempted it. This is everything. This was attempting to save a book 1 in an Excel spreadsheet on 9/28/2011 at 7:01. It saved the information message box that popped up in Excel that says, do you want to save the changes to your workbook? So every alert is saved, every message is saved within an Office application within a Microsoft Office Alert event viewer. So that's pretty powerful. You can, on the application side, I'll end on this one. I like to do the source column and move it because you can source it by application and sort it by application to see if you're having issues with one certain type of application or process. Here's a registry alert for Microsoft Security Client on 3/7/2012. It says the source for the security client couldn't be found. The local computer may not have the necessary registry information or message DLL files to display the message from a remote computer. This is actually resulting from trying to remote into this client from another location. So it gave that error information. I think I had multiple ones on this one. I was trying to remote into it. Had the wrong DLL information. Okay, so that's a viewer. Now let's switch gears to group policy. Group policy editor, your guys' computer won't have this much information on either one, specifically group policy editor. But to get to the group policy editor, it's pretty simple. It's gpedit.msc. This is found in the C Windows directory. You can rename that to something else if you feel like you have some pretty savvy users on your network. I've had to do that before. But anyway, you just type in gpedit.msc and the start run command. It pulls up this screen. And I already have up here for you in the most powerful ones on user configuration side. And this is how I do it. Okay, I get the group policy editor to work like I want it to on a local client, like this. You can export this file and import it into a network group policy editor. Okay, so you're doing it locally on a computer off the network. You're not hurting anything by that computer if you do mess up. Okay, and you will. But you'll be less likely to mess up if you keep this window open, okay? So, but once you get everything like you want it, you can then edit or export this group policy to another computer or to a server. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the control panel just to show you some of the stuff here. Right now, I can get to control panel, no problem, right? Get control panel in XP, no problem. This is how simple it is to prohibit access, except for admins. You can prohibit access. I'm going to just apply it. Now, before I go and show you if it's working, there is an explain tab on every single group policy editor, all the thousands ones you can change. It'll tell you here on prohibit access to control panel, disables all control panel programs. This setting prevents control.exe, the main program, file for the control panel from starting. As a result, users cannot start the control panel or run any control panel items. This setting also removes Control Panel from the Start menu. To open Control Panel, click Start, point to Settings, then click Control Panel. This setting also removes the Control Panel folder from Windows Explorer completely. If user tries to select a Control Panel item from the Properties item on a context menu, a message will appear explaining that the setting prevents this action. So let me go ahead and make sure I enabled that. I did. I hit Apply. Now I'm going to click on the Start menu. There is no Control Panel now. It's gone. Now if I go back and change it back to Not Configured, hit Apply, now it's back. Yes?
Can you try Control-EXE when it's disabled?
No, I didn't. No, I will. Yeah, definitely. In fact, let's do two, because it's going to be actually in Windows Explorer is where the Control Panel folder is. I think it's in C Windows. I think it's in C Windows. But let me go ahead and try that real quick. Let's go ahead and enable it. Apply. There we go. And so it actually blocks the main executable for Control Panel to run at all. And so any right-click option that might launch Control Panel, which there's a lot of them in Windows, will give the user that warning. I'm going to go ahead and put that back. You want to do that all the time. All right. Now also, too, you can prohibit certain areas, like say, for instance, you want to prohibit adding or removing programs only. You don't want the user to be able to add or remove a program or remove any programs. So I can click on the Hide Add. Let's see. I think there's actually one here. The components. Yeah, I can do that. Let's try that one. This one here removes the Add New Program button from the Add or Remove Programs bar. As a result, users cannot view or change the attached page. The Add New Program button lets users install programs published or assigned by a system administrator. If you disable the setting and do not configure it, the Add New Programs button is available to all users. This setting does not prevent users from using other tools or methods to install programs, though. It's just within the Control Panel Install Programs area for this one. But let's go down further. Let's go to, say, Windows Installer. I don't want that one. Internet Explorer, that's one that a lot of times admins will want to prevent certain things. So say like the settings within Internet Explorer, or a real powerful one, maybe desktop. Let's try that one. That's an easy one. Don't save settings on exit. That's one I definitely recommend. Okay, this one right here. You can mess with all the settings on your desktop that you want, but the most powerful one in here is don't save settings on exit, because regardless of what they do, add icons, move the icons around, when they log off or shut down, it's going to revert. It's not going to save any of those settings that they did during that session. That's a really nice one. So they can do whatever they want to during that session, but once they log off or once they get out, it goes back to the way it was. But it actually doesn't save anything, just for that session only. Active desktop, sometimes you'll disable that because that can take up a lot of CPU information, and also could prevent some viruses or malware coming in. Let's go here further with you can run unique scripts to the login. Control delete options. You can remove the lock computer, task manager. Done that a lot of times on task manager. Basically, this one lets the user start or stop a program. And this sometimes, if you have savvy users, they'll go into Task Manager to kill apps. If Task Manager's removed, don't have that ability. Screensaver. Let's get into some more. Software. You can even mess with on the attachment manager. You can mess with such things as notifying antivirus programs and opening applications, regardless what regardless what type of antivirus they have on the system. Especially if you have salespeople that use a laptop and install different antiviruses, that helps a lot. Dun, dun, dun. If you wanted a certain program to start on connection or login, you can do that as well. Give the program path and working directory of that application within your environment, and it would start that up for you. Here we go. Here's another one. In Windows Installer, prevent removable media source for any install. Okay, explanation on that. This prevents users from installing programs from removable media. If a user tries to install removable media such as CD-ROM, floppy, or DVD, a message will appear. If you disable this setting or do not configure it, users can install from removable media, yada yada, unless they have admin privileges. And again, I believe this only applies to CDs, DVDs. I don't believe it's USB. I don't believe this one's USB. But some people still do use installs for CDs. Most don't. Most just try to download. And you can disable that as well. The problem with disabling anything on Internet Explorer is a lot of users, the first thing they will do is download another web browser like Firefox or Chrome anyway. But you can limit users within Active Directory to only run certain applications as well. So let me see if I can find that real quick. I might have taken that off of mine. Let's see if I could find that Windows terminal. Here it is. Here's another good one. Remove access to use all Windows updates feature. Do not display install updates and shutdown option on shutdown. Do not adjust default option to install updates and shutdown. Enable Windows update notifications. So like for instance on this one right here, you can enable it and says do not show any notifications whatsoever, because when users see a notification they want to apply it, and so you can just disable that altogether. And all I'm showing you here too with Windows 7 even has more than what I've got here on XP, I know, specifically for Windows 7, but you can get to it the same way with the gpedit.msc. Yeah, I must have taken that one off. I was trying to find the... Here we go. That's the one I was wanting for. Okay, it's in Administrative Templates, System, Run Only Allowed Windows Applications. This is a real powerful one, but a real scary one. Okay? If you double-click on this one, here's the explanation. This limits the Windows programs that users have permission to run on a computer. If you enable this setting, users can only run programs that you add to the list of allowed applications. This setting only prevents users from running applications that are started by Windows Explorer process. It does not prevent users from running such programs from Task Manager, but if you disable Task Manager, they can't get to that anyway, which are started by a system process or other processes. So like background application stuff, it's not going to stop. Also, if user has access to command prompt, command.exe, this setting does not prevent them from starting the programs in the command window. They are permitted to start by Windows Explorer. Is requirement for third-party applications with Windows 2000 or later to adhere to this setting. To create a list of allowed applications, click Show, Add, then enter the application, the executable name. So let me show you on that one. If I enable it, hit Show, and I can basically hit Add and Notepad.exe, hit OK, Apply. Okay, I've applied it. Now I'm going to exit out of my program. I'm going to keep it applied, okay? So I'm going to try to do something. Now I already have Firefox running here, but let me see if I can run some stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. What do you want to run? You want to run Internet Explorer? Oh, I'm sorry. What else you want to run? Let's see. How about a game? Yeah, I want to play Hearts. Oops, sorry. Okay, and so again, this is pretty powerful, but I've used that quite a bit. That works pretty good because you can put a whitelist, especially for work groups that literally only use. It doesn't block any Windows systems or programs you need to run your OS, but it'll only run those programs that are in that list, and that's it. They can only, if you put 10 in there, that's all they can run. Now, we talked about this earlier. If Notepad.exe is the only one that they can run, what's to stop them from renaming an application to Notepad.exe? Right? So that's where the third-party type apps come in. But anyway, would not configure that one. That one's a pretty powerful one, though. And let's see. And then they have one called Don't Run Specified Windows Applications. So if there's like a blacklist of applications you don't want to run, give me some blacklist of apps you definitely don't want people running on your network. So if you go ahead and type in cmd.exe, anybody else? Give me another one. Anybody? Any other application? What? Regedit? Regedit.exe. What else? Give me a game, even though I don't have it on here. Give me a game that you might add. Solitaire. I don't even know what the executable for that. I'm going to just call it mine. Mine.exe. And then also, how about AOE? Anybody remember that one? You know what that game is? Ages of Empires. Yeah, blocked that one a lot. All right, so that's enough. So, okay, we list of disallowed apps. Okay, so let's see. We put CMD in there, and I've got that one. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. I'll apply. We'll test it out here to see if our disallowed applications do not run specified Windows applications works. Just do CMD. There we go. That doesn't work. And if I type in, that doesn't work. All right. So those two are pretty powerful. I would say probably the blacklist one is definitely more feasible than the whitelist. Definitely applications you don't want them running ever. So even if they install it, possibly, they can't run it. All right. So it used to be, back in the day, it used to be AOL was a hog for networks. I don't think many people use that anymore. But now it's probably, they call it bloatware now, which would be like, these big games people download from the internet. Would be one. But you can see where blacklist could come into play, a little bit more manageable than whitelist probably. You can manage blacklist. And what's cool about this is once I'm going to go ahead and not configure that. Once you get a setting the way you want, on any of these settings, and I was actually in the systems area, I can export this list to a tab delimited text file, and then import that into my group policy editor on the network. Okay, so it'll actually export this whole list. So I can go ahead and just put in here, like, say, I'll name it system, and it'll go right on my text file, and I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like viewing this from Notepad. Okay, so you can see what it's done. My whole session here is saved. It tells me what I've done. Now if I go back in here and say I add another session, which one was on? This don't. Yeah, I enabled that one. Now if you're playing with this, I don't know if you guys probably can't get to this on your computer, right? Hopefully. EXE. All right, I'll do that one. I'll apply that one. Hit OK. Now I'm going to export this again. All right, so it gives me I think it has this enabled now. Yeah, has that enabled for me. All right, so it goes through and gives a list of the settings enabled for me. So that's Group Policy Editor. Let me go back in and put that back to not configured. All right. So any questions on that? I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here. One you want to play with, actually, is the administrative templates area. Keep it open, keep Group Policy Editor open, and then make sure before you close it, you go back through all those areas you're in to make sure that, in fact, the easiest way to do is what I just showed you. You can actually just right-click anywhere and export your list and save it. And then when you open it up, from Notepad, it will show you anything that you have enabled. Okay? Anything you've enabled. Nothing. I don't have anything enabled on mine right now. So, all right. Yes.
How do you import it?
Importing, actually, yeah, let me see here. I know there's a way. Been a while since I imported it.
Oh, add and remove templates, is that it?
Where's that?
Action, add and remove templates.
Yeah,
Is that it?
I believe so, yes. Yep, and then here's where you go out and grab your template, and that's how you do it. You have to name the template though, and I didn't do that. I don't want to mess with that. But yeah, you have to add the template, save the template you're currently working on, and then because I can add and remove a template, I can add a whole nother template. I can name it whatever, and add it. See, all these are actually templates within here that have been played with. Once you create your template, then you can import it. So that's where it's done at. Some of these are labeled by like a type of block, like, you know, Windows Media Player or something like that. So go online. There are a lot of resources for Group Policy Editor. I just gave you kind of a real brief overview. But if you keep the window open, you're safe, and you make sure and go back to not configured each time, you're okay. Don't ever shut down this before you made sure you basically went and checked not configured on everything. Yes.
Stupid question. Does Linux have anything like Active Directory service? Or something like that?
Yeah, they do. You do have a security in the root of control panel for Linux. Does have a security module, a little bit like Active Directory. It's different, but yeah, you can set up groups and then add permissions to those groups, just like you can.
Those are only local, right?
They are local, but if you set up like SUSE file server, there's a component in there called, I think it's called network security, something like that, network security something. Anyway, within that is where it's kind of like a group policy type editor. Yeah, network security administration or something like that. Yeah, because you can authenticate to a Linux server right, through LDAP, and then from LDAP, basically, you would drag down those rules. Yeah. Now, if it was set up in LDAP on Linux, you would be limited to Linux clients that being applied to, if that makes sense. But yeah, you can definitely do it. So.
Linux machine with Active Directory. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you could. Definitely. There's plugins for that. Yeah. You can definitely do that. Yeah. Well, the downside to that would be, I guess, on the security side, would be it wouldn't apply any local settings. Network settings, it would apply fine, but not local settings to that Linux machine. So it would apply up here, the administrative stuff for network, but like Windows components and system, it wouldn't apply. So, all right. So that's Group Policy Editor, Event Viewer. Event Viewer you're not going to get much trouble with because it's just log files. But Group Policy Editor you definitely could get in some trouble with. So just keep the screen open. Microsoft has a lot of free online resources. In fact, I was looking at one earlier today that was pretty good. I think I just typed in GPO only. And it might have been this TechNet. They have like a PowerShell for it. No, it's this one right here. This was a good one. Yeah, this is a good one. In fact, this whole website's really good. This petri.co.il has a lot of cool stuff in it. Anyway, it has a lot of good resources on, how to set up scripts, local policies, group policies, and it explains in detail tools that you can use, MMC tool, Active Directory site tool. So that's a good one too. And that's petri.co.il. That's a good website actually. It's got a lot of cool tools in that one.